Well, we are very fortunate now to welcome another developer here on XEP for our interview segments. This time we are welcoming Bartek Lesiakowski. I'm going to say that for me, my friend, from Plot Twist Games to discuss The Last Case of Benedict Fox, which is just out recently. Bartek, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for invitation.
I'm ecstatic to have you here to celebrate your game. Obviously, you guys just came out. Before we go too far, though, I am terribly embarrassed that I butchered your name, and I would love for you to tell us how to pronounce it properly.
No, it was perfect. I'm Bartek Lesiakowski.
Well, it is great to have you here, of course, to talk about The Last Case of Benedict Fox. But before we do that and go too far in there, I'd like to talk a little bit about Plot Twist and kind of find out a little bit about the studio. How long have you guys been making games?
Yeah, so it's a complicated story. We started a long time ago, but we were called Awesome Industries back then.
Mm-hmm.
And we started with some mobile games and some work for hire. Then we jumped into the software world, and for many years we were developing strictly software.
Mm-hmm.
And only after we came up with the idea of Benedict, we decided to split the company. And Awesome Industries still create software, and Plot Twist became the company purely focused on making The Last Case of Benedict Fox.
Gotcha. That's really cool. Fantastic. Now, is this the first game in which you've been the creative director?
Yes, indeed. Yes,
Oh, wow. So that's big, kind of a big step then, yeah?
Yeah, it is surely a challenge, but it was also a dream of mine, so a welcome challenge.
Very cool. Well, congratulations on the release then of Benedict Fox, because I'm sure that was big. How long have you been working in game development?
So I joined the company at the start of the software years. So in the meantime of when we were creating software, we also tried some making some games and some prototypes on the side. So because we are players, we always wanted to make games. So we tried to. Every year or so, we tried another concept and another concept until we decided that Benedict Fox is something worth chasing. When we transitioned and we split into Plot Twist, we completely committed to making only this game. And for me also, it was a first dive into the full game development.
Well, congratulations. That's so cool. The premise of The Last Case of Benedict Fox is just wild when you think about kind of this. You're going to limbo, you're a detective, you're in what feels to me very Lovecraftian type elements. And I don't know if this is the intention, and I'm curious. Edgar Allan Poe elements seem to kind of fall in line here at various points. You're
Yes.
nodding. Is that true?
Yes, that is true. I see a keen eye, fellow detective.
Yeah.
The game is full of maybe not strictly Easter eggs, but we did hide many in many aspects. Some slight nods to both Edgar Allan Poe, Lovecraft, and different creators from the era.
Interesting. Now, talk to me about the inspiration then, because what you've got is a Metroidvania-like game with those those Lovecraftian elements, those Edgar Allan Poe vibes here and there. What was the inspiration of this? How did the idea come together?
So the idea, actually, I had the idea because whenever I go to work, I pass an abandoned mansion. So every time I pass the mansion, I thought about what may have happened that the mansion is in such a state, and what could have happened to the mansion owners.
Mm-hmm.
So this became like the backbone of the story. And just that one night, I also came up with the idea for the character,
Mm-hmm.
and those two ideas over time merged and basically created the structure for the story of the game.
So Bartek, that would imply that not only are you working in kind of a creative director role, but did you also write the game, or did you have help writing the game?
I wrote most of the game, yeah, with help of two other people, one of which is Kuba, who also is a senior concept artist.
Gotcha. That's fantastic. So I love the idea that you're every morning on the way to work passing an abandoned mansion. That's
Yeah.
haunting, strange, awesome, all of the
Yeah,
above.
and beautiful, yeah.
Is it? Oh, wow. That's amazing. So, were you always a fan of kind of the Lovecraftian element or the detective element, both? Like, where did that element of it come from?
Yeah. So not only me, but many people in the studio, we we think of ourselves as creative bunch, but we do like and always liked creepy stuff, and it was inevitable that we will turn into that direction. Even though the story initially was more detective-like than Lovecraftian,
Mm-hmm.
when we were trying to figure out the timeline of the game, we initially thought that it will take place in the modern times,
Mm-hmm.
but some of the story elements didn't exactly work with modern times with our technology and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we went back in time, first to the 50s, to the 40s, and then we landed in the 1920s, which made much more sense when it comes to technology. So from there, it was a no-brainer to leap into Lovecraftian vibes. We even thought to maybe put H.P. Lovecraft as a character himself in the game, but we decided on his friend Harry Houdini.
Mm-hmm. That's fascinating. Now, how much research goes into that then? Because that is to do a detective story, you obviously have to do plenty of kind of pre-puzzle solving yourselves, but then to make things make sense and to have them line up with previously established lore plus the lore of your game, that sounds to me like a lot of research.
Yes, it's a lot of research. Uh, at the start, we picked a bunch of movies, we picked a bunch of books, and some music that we knew that we all have to listen to, watch, and read in order to think alike and to create a cohesive word. And uh, some of it was aligned with our interests. So most of us knew Lovecraft works and books of Agatha Christie and so on. So it came easy,
Mm-hmm.
but to take this and to create our own detective story with own
Mm-hmm.
puzzles was a puzzle on its own. So it
Mm-hmm.
was a lot of fun, but it was challenging for sure.
For the game to fall into the Metroidvania category, obviously there's a lot of puzzles you have to solve on the back end in terms of level design and planning out the routes of the player, not just the puzzles they need to solve in the moment. But I would have to think that laying it out, storyboarding out the level design is its own unique process compared to, say, A to B platformer kind of thing.
Oh yeah, definitely. And initially we even thought about this game being more linear, but
Mm-hmm.
when we came up with the idea of companion and this gift of entering human psyche,
Mm-hmm.
it quickly turned out that uh, to visualize like human psyche and stream of thoughts, we need to create very chaotic and complex levels. So
Mm-hmm.
it kind of create this maze-like structure, and what other genre deals with this the best? Metroidvania. So it kind of evolved on its own, and after maybe a few months, we thought to ourselves, "Oh, okay, we wanted a linear game, but it looks like we are creating Metroidvania." So it was a surprise to us also.
That's fascinating. Now, the game opens, of course, and I should have prefaced this for the player. We open the game, we are investigating the death of our father, and then we are able to enter into. I would word this, and I don't feel this is too spoilery for anybody, but we're able to enter his memories. Was that a fair statement? I wouldn't.
Yes,
Trying to dance around certain plot things here, but we're able to enter into his memories and then investigate his murder.
exactly. Yeah.
That is a morbid place to go, for sure. But I feel like it wonderfully accompanies the art style that you guys have chosen. Can you talk to me a little bit about the inspirations for the art style, the color palette that you guys have cultivated here?
Yeah. So we have this rule that we are looking for contrasts everywhere. So because we think that where there are contrasts, there is some friction, and where there is friction, there's something interesting. So we knew that we have the potential to create a beautiful graphic. We knew that we have great graphic designers, great concept artists. So we were sure that if we want to show our full capability, we need some idea for the environments that won't hold us back, hence the human psyche. And usually this kind of stories, or maybe everything even connected to Lovecraftian mythos, is very grim and dull, and we wanted to liven this up a bit. So we came up with this, as some people say, Burtonesque style, which is very pleasant to look at, but contrasted with very grim story and very mature topics, create the friction that I've talked about.
I see. That makes good sense. I found that multiple times there were portions where that contrast made a huge difference in me just stopping and looking and observing the environment and kind of seeing the depth. There's a really cool depth thing that you guys do with the camera where certain objects will obscure our vision and they'll be shadowed out, and then that gives a huge contrast to what's in the foreground, background, and whatnot. How long did that art style take to come up with, like to play around with, to get right?
Yes, so it was a long evolution, and I think that what we've ended up with maybe crystallized at around the second year of development. Because it was a challenge after challenge after challenge, because we knew that we wanted to avoid this feeling of watching a play. So we didn't want to cut the environment. As you say, our environments span from under the camera far into the distance, and we wanted to put the player straight in the center of the action. So it was very challenging to connect this idea with the idea of this very maze-like environment. So we had to create very fluid and dynamic camera that would follow Benedict naturally through this maze. It was something that at first seemed kind of impossible, especially given the size of our studio, but we were very stubborn, and we are very proud of how the game looks.
As you should be. Now, that begs the question: how big is the studio?
Right now we're 30, but we started with 5 people because, as mentioned, after splitting the company, we basically had to create the team from the scratch, and So for a few months it was 5 people, then 15, then 20, and right now there's 30 of us.
Wow. Okay. Goodness. Then, and you said that you had figured out the art style kind of early on, and you mentioned I want to say 2 year time. How long have you guys been working on Benedict Fox then?
So full 3 years
Mhm.
for the whole team, and maybe half a year to a year for me before that to prepare and to pitch the game, to create game design documents, and so on.
That would imply that you guys started during COVID time. Yes.
Yes, yes,
Oh,
we
no small
that's a
task.
COVID baby, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Is that difficult? You think, did that give different types of pressure to have to make that pitch during pandemic time, different types of the development changes that might take place?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely, because hiring new people and creating a team from new people, it's hard enough on its own. And when you got to deal with the COVID, then you need to deal or maybe deal with the consequences of war in the neighboring country. It for sure isn't easy, but fortunately we have a wonderful team, and um, uh, we got extremely lucky that we found people that we did.
Yeah, I mean, certainly is a joy to play now. We were talking about the atmosphere before I got distracted, and I think kind of going hand in hand with the visual art style is the sound design and some of the really powerful music that you guys have. Pardon my dog. That you have accompanying some of the more emphatic moments of Benedict's journey. Can you talk a little bit about sound design and then how important the role of music is
Mhm.
in that journey?
Yes. So the to achieve the atmosphere, an atmosphere in such a game is crucial, especially if we want to create this feeling of immersion. Uh, we knew that the graphic side will be fine, but we to add more and to build, we wanted to have music that would both be just creepy enough that it would give players the chills,
Mm-hmm.
and it would be still period correct, because 1920s was a jazz era, and we wanted to have just enough jazz that players will feel that they landed straight into 1920s.
Mm-hmm.
And so we contacted Antonis Skolias, who is our composer,
Mm-hmm.
who actually worked mostly in theater before. So it was very cool to hear this completely fresh for games ideas, and to work together and figure out what could work and what couldn't work in our game. For example, the initial idea to have this very 1920s jazz was a kind of was a miss, because back then it was a popular music, it was a dance music, so
Mm-hmm.
it was much too cheerful. So we
Mm-hmm.
had to search for a bit later jazz that's more unsettling sometimes, or melancholic, or not that easy and not that catchy,
Mm-hmm.
but it suited the game much more.
I have heard I've heard reviewers say, and I absolutely and vehemently agree with, there are moments of escalation and tension with that music that it reminds them of like a Hans Zimmer type
Yeah.
approach, where like that really powerful like gong
Mhm.
happens. Um, Even early on when you find the body of your father and stuff, and that's opening stuff, guys. So anybody that's
Okay.
listening, fear not,
Thank
you're
you.
okay.
Yeah. I will tell
It's
that to Antonis, because the first thing that he said when we decided to work together, that he said, "Give me some time, and I will be the Hans Zimmer of games." So
no way. Did he really say that?
yeah,
That's so cool. What a neat like kind of connection there.
yeah.
That's really neat. I'm curious as I kind of look at our I've talked so much about the art and the atmosphere and the writing. that I want to kind of loop back to a bit of the gameplay elements here. There were choices made to let Benedict go hand to hand with some of our monsters and foes, which in Limbo, are they memories? Are they maleficent entities? What are our primary bad guys that we are fighting?
Yeah. So the first idea was that there will be kind of a manifestation of human psychological faults, errors, or maybe illnesses.
Mm-hmm.
It was maybe a step too far. So we landed somewhere in between. We don't exactly say what they are, but they are made of a substance that we call ink, and this ink kind of represents this evil force that can take human mind, because as we all know, there is something dark in all of us.
Sure.
And if we want learn to control it, it can take over. And this is kind of the backbone of the story and backbone of the idea for the enemies.
There is the physical combat with them. You can go, X button and melee on them, but then you can also charge up your pistol in that and kind of get a good old shot off on them. Can you talk to me about the idea behind like how you wanted the player to physically combat these enemies?
Yeah. So since Benedict is not a superhero, he's just very smart and agile. We wanted to support the horror or very maybe claustrophobic feel of the game, and we wanted to put player into uncomfortable situations in which he will have to use his reflexes and wit, especially. Since Benedict cannot pass through enemies, he needs to use the full arsenal of his companion skills or different items to control the battlefield. And we wanted for him to jump in, take a few swings with the knife, jump back, and then shoot from safe positions, for example. So most of the scenarios demand from players that they will adjust, that they will plan ahead, and that they will approach the combat in a more tactical way.
For it to be a Metroidvania, though, that would mean that you have to design kind of a range of abilities and things to discover. Is it tough as the creative director to decide what's important to give the player early on, midway through, at the end, and kind of hone that?
Oh yeah, yeah. We made every kind of mistake on the way. So initially, we gave Benedict so many abilities that we ourselves got lost early on, and we've learned the hard way that we need to pace the game, especially since it's still a detective game. So it starts mostly with questions and intrigue. So this is challenging on its own, and if we add to those questions with another abilities that you have to learn, it quickly can become overwhelming. So we had to both stretch a bit the initial game flow and stretch the moments of giving the players new abilities. So we tried to approach this idea a bit differently than other Metroidvanias, where you usually just find the skill in environment. You have this environment that you can test it out, and then you go on and explore further. And we tried to give the players very different Metroidvania locks and keys. So not all of them are just pure skills, and so some of them are puzzles, some of them based on players' knowledge, not Benedict's knowledge. So it added up to the challenge of creating this, but we thought that we value variety of gameplay even more.
Mm-hmm. You guys also built in to the menu system, like if the puzzles are too hard, you allowed the player to ease them, skip them, so they could continue to enjoy the game, which I thought was pretty darn cool. But I'm curious if that's tough, not tough to do, but a tough decision to make as the creative director. Like, do we let our players skip this thing that we created?
Mhm. No, so we wanted this from the get-go. So the only really tough part is to do it very early on, because if you think about it ahead and you plan and you create all of the mechanics with this in mind, it's not that hard. But usually it's easy to fall into a trap where you have the game completed almost, and then you think about the difficulty adjustment. So since we started the game with this idea already in mind, that we don't want the game to be overly challenging, and if someone wants to customize their gameplay, they will be able to. Mm, so with this in mind, we planned ahead. We figure out that we don't want any of the settings to, for example, have any impact on achievements. So players can change those settings whenever they want. It was more important for us, for the players, to have fun than to have like a big challenge.
Gotcha. That makes good sense. And because you had it built in from the beginning, it's a different question now in my mind than say like, oh, adding that in at the end. So that makes perfect sense. You guys got a lot of attention when we saw you guys kind of debut Xbox adjacent. Obviously, I'm familiar with the Xbox community mostly. How has the journey kind of from the sharing of the initial trailers, from when people got to see The Last Case of Benedict Fox through to release, how was that journey? Was there excitement, pressure? How did you guys feel about that?
So first there was a lot of uncertainty, because our first more story-oriented game, our first game in a while, our biggest game, and so on. And since we knew what we wanted to do, we took our time before we showed anyone what we are making. And I think that we worked for a year and a half before we decided to send anyone. And at that point, if you don't show the game for a year and a half, you are sure that you have a bad game, because you're sick of it. And fortunately, when we sent the game to the publishers and we started pitching, we got very positive feedback. So it was a moment of a bit of a pride and confirmation that we are heading into a right direction. So we quickly talked with Xbox team, who are very excited about the game. We decided, they proposed for us to join the Game Pass, which was a huge honor for us. And at the point where we showed the game at the Xbox and Bethesda showcase, we were extremely excited and very humbled by the response from the players.
That's so cool to hear, and I'm happy to hear that, because putting your art out there, it's such an exposing feeling, or you feel so exposed. It can be a very vulnerable place, and so I'm really glad to hear that. And yeah, being at the Xbox Bethesda Showcase 2022, right? 2022. Yeah. Time is weird, right? Post COVID. Even now, I'm still confused. That's a big show to be a part of, right? Like that's exciting.
Yes, for a tiny studio like us with a first game, it was huge.
That's so cool. And you said it was their proposal to go into Game Pass?
Yes.
That's good. Have you? To me, that's really cool. We talk to a lot of indie devs going onto Game Pass. That's got to be fun and exciting because it's kind of a new territory in some ways, not others, but in some.
Yeah, definitely. And at the point where we got the offer and we knew that it could open up many avenues for us because Xbox team took great care of us. So we had the access to new players, we had the access to experts, and we knew that thanks to the deal, we had the ability to spread the wings and to try some crazy stuff that we otherwise maybe wouldn't be brave enough to try. Some of them worked, some of them didn't, but now we know, we learned, and we will be better.
Are you able to give an example of what that means? Because when you say have their support and then try things,
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what that means kind of on the outside looking in.
Yes. So for example, we took the Metroidvania and we knew that we want to have like this detective story, but this could end in just this sentence. We will have Metroidvania and the story will be about the detective. But since we knew that we have the support of Xbox and they tried a few of those more brave, let's say, ideas, we knew that we can try to dive deeper into this detective fantasy. So we've added puzzles, and some of them more complicated than others. Some of them interwoven in the story in ways that that maybe weren't tried before. So it was a pretty challenging process to actually combine the Metroidvania with a adventure game in a way that it won't disrupt the Metroidvania aspect. So we had to be careful, but since we knew that we have the support, we knew that we'll try for sure.
Does support mean like, okay, you got funding for an extra month to build out those puzzles, to work through those things? Is that what you mean?
Even more important was the belief that what we are proposing is good, because
Gotcha.
they know what they're doing. They know a lot more about games than we do, and since they found the idea interesting and fresh and new, then that gave us a lot of confidence that we can go even further into that area.
That's really neat. And for any listener, I will tell you, if you're going to solve some of those puzzles, pen and paper, you're going to need a pen and paper. You need writing down some clues here, and a keen eye. Very helpful there, for sure. Bartek, the game comes out. You get to see reception things that they want you to work on, things that they loved about it. I've seen so many players enthralled with this game, people that were excited about it. Once your art is out there, is the studio's work done? Is it on to the next thing, or is there patching? For you guys, once it's there, what's that vibe like? What's the feeling like of seeing, all right, go, and here it is?
So one would hope that the feeling would be that of a closure of sorts, because we worked for so many years. But this evolves quickly into a conversation with community, and this is sometimes tough, but also very rewarding, because first of all, if you feel like an artist or developer, whatever, it is very important to be humble sometimes, and to get a lot of feedback, both negative and positive, and it makes you think about the next projects, because you already see that okay, I could have made this better and that better, and this person has a great idea, and we could have done some things differently, and maybe the fixing part that we are doing right now is not the most pleasurable part of it, but we can't wait to show what we've learned and what we are still learning, because we try to read every sort of feedback. We are very active on forums, on Twitter, on Discord, and we are talking with the community. And we think that we know what they want and what they expect from our next patches, and maybe in future next games.
So this is the question that I'm so proud of, because I thought of this on my own, and I'm sure I'm not the only person. My closing question for you is: is this the last case of Benedict Fox?
So
yeah, it's cheesy, right? But I'm proud of it.
If someone finished the game already and watched the post-credit scene, then they know.
Then they know. Then they know. Is this a character that you would explore in any way, shape, or form? DLC, new game, whatever. Would you like to revisit Benedict Fox in any way, shape, or form? More sustainably? See, I'm trying to be vague.
Never say never.
Never say never. Good answer. Bartek, thank you so much for joining me today. Congratulations on releasing. Of course, Last Case of Benedict Fox is out on PC and on Xbox. Please let people know what to look forward to, where to find you if they're interested in learning more about the game and checking it out on socials and such.
Yes, and thank you for the invitation. Of course, it was a pleasure. So you can find us at Plot Twist Games and on Twitter, and feel free to comment wherever you can on Steam forums, on Twitter, on our publisher Rogue Games Discord, where we are also very active. Come talk to us and play the game.
There you go. Listeners, again, the game is available on Game Pass. You can check it out over on Steam, deluxe editions and whatnot, all available. Definitely check out the soundtrack. And listeners, remember, you can follow XEP on all your platforms, services for more interviews, and support us over on Patreon if that's a thing. Bartek, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much. Thank you.